So thank you so much, Jess, for joining us this morning. I just love your branding. I just love the way you take branding to the edge. I love it that you share branding stories. And I know whenever I look at something that you've created, that it's going to be spectacular. So I'm so pleased you could join us this morning. Welcome to this
Absolutely.
very perfectly formed small audience this morning for our I Am Woman Hour that will then be going out online later today. So thank you so much for joining us. Welcome. And before we make a start, we've got our audience here, perfectly selected, that's going to be asking you some questions around their brands. And then we're going to open the floor to you, Jess. And I know you're just going to blow our minds. So we're going to
Right.
start with you then. Can we put our hands together first of all for Jess? Yay! Big online clap for Jess. Okay, so let's start with you then, Beth. So what are your questions you need answers to when it comes to this whole story of branding?
Well, I've never had to put together my own brand because I've always worked under umbrella companies that had quite a brand that we had to use. There's no flexibility really. So I'm just interested generally because I don't get a say in my own brand. It's quite hard to make yourself an individual when you work within a big company.
Right. So what is your question, do you think? What do you want to know?
I don't know, I've got a specific question. I'm interested in all things big picture, really.
Okay, lovely. We're going to come to Rachel Bedgood, who's got a very strong brand. So it'll be really interesting what Rachel wants to know about perhaps her brand or where to take her brand. Over
Well,
to
it's interesting you say we've got a strong brand because I don't actually think so. And I sometimes confuse myself as to what branding is. I mean, what is branding? Are we talking about a nice logo that people recognize? Are we talking about branding in the sense that Rachel Bedgood needs to be the face of CPS? I mean, yeah, there's so many elements to branding, and okay, we've got a nice logo, we've got a nice website, we've got our stuff out there, but whether that's really branding and good branding, I don't know.
And it's been interesting looking at the work now that Jess has been involved in, because Tiny Wizard Studio, when I started looking at all the awards that you've won, and so I can remember Jess coming from university, coming to I Am Woman, setting up as a freelancer, and now to be running such a recognized brand agency in such a short time is absolutely incredible. But also to look across at all those businesses that you're doing really exciting work in, from a startup, from digital companies online through to the NHS, and making them all equally exciting. So I can really see what Rachel's dilemma is. What is this brand all about? And is it about us or is it about our market? And how do we make this really imaginative brand? Because we can get it so wrong. So, and we have online Mel. So Mel is a startup. Um, and I know Mel is in that stage where she's thinking, who am I and what's this branding me got to do with anything? So over to you, Mel. What will be your question?
Yeah, do you know, I'm very similar to Rachel in the sense that well, I don't really have a brand at the moment, so I'm similar to Beth in that case. I've been in the very sort of comfort zone of getting work sort of trickling through from the typical clients that I already have. But as Cheryl knows, one of the big challenges for me now is to put my big girl pants on and go out directly to clients rather than get my work through other people, if that makes sense. So for me, definitely want to understand the whole concept of branding a lot more. I know how important it is. Well, I think I do, but maybe I don't. So maybe that's another thing to explore. And this for me is just kind of all part of this learning curve, really. And for me, I mean, Cheryl was mentioning reds, and red is my favorite color. I want red everywhere. Red says a lot about I think, about my personality as well. So again, useful little sort of tips and tricks, like anything down to colors, images, font sizes, anything that's going to be useful to me when I start to put mine together, and how I start to put it together, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can cover that, definitely.
And where's animation sitting in all this? Everyone who seems to have a brand seems to have an animation, I can't even say animation of a brand. So what's that about? Yeah, how do we do that? So coming to you, Lisa, you're working with a lot of people creating brands to pop brands on their websites and across all the digital media platforms. So what are your questions around branding? And do you see people get super confused with it?
I think so. I think people think, like was mentioned earlier, like branding is like a logo and some colours and things like that. And I've got branding. My logo doesn't say my right website name, because my right business name, because I changed it and I'm still waiting to have the logo changed. But I feel like my brand is very me, and I'm all about making like tech fun and more exciting and all that type of stuff. But I feel like the visual type things are there, but not the messaging side of it. That the messaging side doesn't seem to collaborate, is that the word, with the visuals type thing. So I think that's the biggest thing for me.
And I suppose what I remember from working with Jess on the I Am Woman brand is that how a brand can look a lot bigger than an individual. Because I always was saying we in I Am Woman, where it was in fact me. But the brand I Am Woman looked a global brand because it was a strong brand. So, how can we create these brands that take us beyond ourselves into that global market space and say some pretty spectacular things that is just more than one person? So I'm interested in that part of it as well. And so coming to you, Yvonne, you're part of a global brand. But you're also, venturing out, developing another brand of your own for some pretty incredible training. So over to you. So tell us about your brand dilemmas. What questions do you need answers to?
Yes, I mean, as a forever business owner, we do have a global brand, and I, like Beth, I don't have to worry about that because that is well renowned and well respected. But as my own personal business, as a sort of coach and a trainer, I'm revamping my website. I'm looking at colors, I'm looking at fonts. And yeah, what really makes a good brand? How do I put across me as the brand, really?
Okay. Right, coming to you, Lynn, because it must be so hard trying to create a brand around somebody doing their will, is it, and should that be almost like an animated piece of branding when it comes to people dying and their wills? Could you make a funny piece about that to get over the stigma of writing a will, because it's all about death? Barbie covers that, by the way, as well. So coming back to watching Barbie last night and having a good giggle. So again, could that be a question for to go to Jess? How do you make making a will and the impact of death into perhaps a really strong brand that's animated? I don't know. Over to you, Lynn. It's your question. I'm just
well, no, that's actually quite a good question, because I'm a bit like Beth. I've always worked for big corporate firms, so I've never had to think about branding. I've just been employed by that firm and haven't given it a second thought. Same like then with Mel, since I have gone self-employed, I've had so many people just come to me through, referrals, and I see one client and then their sister wants something, or their dad wants something, or their uncle. So it's not something I've ever had to think about. So I wouldn't have a clue where to start, because like you say, it is such a topic really that I wouldn't know what branding to have. I don't have a logo really. Literally all I have is LB Jones Associates. I've got nothing in place. Wouldn't know where to start.
There we go. So a lot of meat you can add to the bone there, Jess. And
Okay.
coming to Karen in Grey Mouse Publishing, what's your question today?
I think I don't really have one. I think I'm just going to be interested to hear about branding generally, just so I can pick up a few tidbits and ideas and hints and things, because I'm very good at being invisible. So it's a case of how do I step into sort of be a bit more visible?
Right. Oh, that's a good question. How do we step into visibility? So I'm going to be putting my chat on anyway. So I would love to know questions you might have as we go along, and I'm sure Jess will as well. So Jess, take to the floor. Over to you. Tell us all about branding.
Shall I give you a little bit of an intro first about where I've come from and why I suppose what I'm saying might be useful?
Yeah.
So you know all about that. So yeah, I've been running Tiny Wizard Studio and Alchemy Branding Studio for about 10 years now. So we've got two businesses. One focuses on animation for brands and one focuses on developing branding, as it says on the tin. I came from a design background, so my degree and all of that was to do with brand and brand communication. So that was always where my passion lay. And I went into freelancing after I got fired from my second ever job out of uni, to be honest, because I was a terrible employee. So I had to figure out how to build a business, build a client base and build my own brand. And that's been a really big journey of the last 10 years. So we've got a team of 10 now, and we work with global brands from Amazon to DS Smith, and we work with small to medium businesses on developing their brand and their brand messaging as well. So it's been a journey, and we've worked with so many different types of businesses. I love my job because I end up learning so much about industries that I never ever would have any opportunity to learn about otherwise. So it's definitely been the best thing that I ever did, I think, being a bad employee. It's definitely worked out. But in terms of branding, there's a lot of big questions there, and I'll try and dissect as much as I can. But yeah, please throw questions at me. But I guess if we start with what is branding, that might be a good intro. So branding and your brand are two separate things. So your brand is your visuals, your logo, how you show up online, your colors, your fonts, all of this stuff. Your branding is how you make people feel when they work with you. It's what they remember about working with you. And that's the important element to differentiate brand and branding. So your brand is your shop window. It's what people see, and your branding is how people feel when they work with you and why they want to come back with you and work with you time and time again. So I guess there's two elements there. Developing really distinctive visuals that stand out from your competitors, your logo, and doing that really well is one side. And then developing your messaging and how you show up and how you talk about the services that you offer is the other side. Now, I'm always going to advocate going to an expert to develop branding. Of course, I'm going to say that. Can't get away from that. But there are things that you can do for individual pieces of work before you start exploring what your brand should look like. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Gartner or McKinsey reports, but they do a lot of research around how people buy and how people choose who they want to work with and how they buy products online, how they get in touch with people. So 10 years ago, it would be you were more likely to get a direct phone call from someone interested in your services, have a face-to-face conversation, a meeting, or whatever it might be. And that was your opportunity then to build the know, like, and trust. They know you, they speak to you, they get to like you, they buy from you. Things have changed really dramatically in that buyers now are doing all of their research online. They are doing so much stalking on you before they will even get in touch. So they are doing research, they are finding you on social media, they're reading your website, they're looking for video content more than ever before, which is kind of why that branch of our business has grown before they get in touch. So it's really important to show up consistently wherever your brand is showing up online. And that means you need to have exactly the same logo on every single platform that you're showing up on. Exactly the same tagline, messages, exactly the same color, fonts, consistency is so undervalued and is really, really important, because it's like what you were saying earlier about, Karen, about the book. And if things are formatted a little bit differently in different places, that trust diminishes. So if someone, for instance, goes on your website, you've got a really strong brand, really strong messaging, but then they go onto your social media and it looks slightly different, or you can see that the same effort hasn't been put into that platform, that trust is a little bit diminished and is being chipped away at. So you need to make sure that everything is consistent and everything is showing up the same quality, the same level of quality wherever you're showing up online. So that is one thing that I see brands doing not as well as they should be. And believe me, that sometimes it comes down to really, really basic things like a slight corner of your logo being cut off on your Instagram profile, or not being able to see that logo identity icon clearly because it's on a red background and not reversed. These little touches make a big difference when people are searching who they want to work with. So before you have a conversation with a customer, they've probably done a lot of research on you before you get to that point. So that's why branding is much more important than it ever was, I think, these days. And in terms of, red is my favorite color, or, this is, my brand feels like me, it's not for you. That sounds really brutal, but your brand, your service, what you're offering, nothing to do with you. Absolutely nothing to do with you. It's all about your customers. So rather than thinking, this brand is me, it feels like me, this is my favorite color, and that's why I've chosen that. The questions you need to be asking are, what are my customers looking for? What are my competitors doing that are bringing in the customers I want? How are they presenting themselves online? So doing a little bit of research around who your competitors are, what they're doing well, what they're doing not so well, is really, really vital. And that's something you can do yourself, in your own time, and bring that to a logo designer or whoever you're going to be working with. So a lot of research goes into all of this before you even start looking at visual identities or logo designs. And I would also say the same thing needs to be done in terms of your market research. So you've all heard probably the adage, if you're trying to be everything for everyone, you're not going to be anything to anyone. So we need to get really, really clear about who we're speaking to. So you all probably have a ton of competitors in your industry, in your space. That's normal. And because of the way the world's gone now, there are more and more businesses sprouting who are offering very similar services, very similar products that they're selling. So how do we differentiate ourselves from those people? And that comes back to how you make people feel when they work with you. So a really valuable piece of work that I encourage all business owners to do is really speak to your current customers. Ask for 15 minutes of their time and ask questions like, why did you choose to work with me? Why was I the preferred choice over these people? Or would you work with me again? If not, why not? If so, why so? And ask them really specific questions about why you and why your business. And use those answers to form your messaging. So for instance, rather than, I don't know, Lynn, you might say, oh, I offer wills and testaments to whoever it might be. Based on that research you get from customers, your messaging then might change to personal, jargon-free advice from your friendly neighborhood lawyer, or whatever it might be, whatever the feedback might be. Because you might get feedback that says, I loved working with you because you didn't make me feel I don't know, dense about legal jargon, or it didn't make me feel sad because it was a practical thing. And you can use those wordings in your brand messaging. So a good example, I guess, is our own. So I could say, yes, we're a branding agency or an animation studio, but we've done that piece of work where we've asked our clients and our customers why they work with us. And that has transformed to, we help brands sell complicated products simpler and faster with great brand and animated storytelling. Because that they didn't come to us because we're an animation or branding agency. There's tons of those. They work with us because we help them distill complex ideas into engaging content that people understand. So it's really important to get that insight from your customers. And if you can, go really, really detailed and build a client persona. So ours is Emma. She's 32. She's a marketer in the tech space. She's got specific budgets to work with every year, and she's really scared that her CEO is going to shout at her if she spends too much money on digital marketing. These are her fears. And this is her aim in her job. She's been there 2 years. This is the turnover of the business. And build a client persona around who your target audience is, who your ideal client is, who you want more of. And then in your content, speak directly to them. So, hey, marketers, I always start my content with hey, marketers, because that's who we work with. And if I'm talking from our alchemy branding, I'm saying, hey, business owners or entrepreneurs, I'm talking directly to those people. So when they're searching for you online, all your content is speaking directly to them, and they're more likely to go, oh, this is for me. This is for me. This is who I need to be working with. I've said a lot there, so I suppose I should get some more questions in, and I can elaborate on the bits that don't make sense or shift gears. Does that help? You're on mute, Cheryl.
So can everyone put their questions in the chat box? I've popped a question in about the role of photography. So because when you're looking at social media posting, everyone needs these visuals. So what role does photography play in all that?
Photography is really, really important. And I think there's so much temptation out there for stock images. It's really accessible, really easy to get, free. And a lot of brands rely on the photography. But if you go back to the know, like, and trust element, and the likelihood is that your customers are going to be speaking to you at some point. So having those touch points where they're seeing your actual face in real photography across your content, they're more likely to feel a connection with you and more likely to buy from you when they eventually do get on that call, because they feel like they know you. And that is really, really important. And I think that there is a role for stock imagery, but I feel that personalized brand photography that is you, that is your team, is your environment, in your space, is really, really valuable in the long term. And stock imagery also, there's a danger, again, that your competitors and the brands that you're competing against are using very similar imagery, because you probably have done this before. Lots of brands have. You type in financial advisor stock imagery in the stock image website and download what comes up. Your competitors are doing the same. So when people are doing the research, how are they going to differentiate you from your competitors? So I really, really advocate investing in some really strong brand photography of you, and use it everywhere, again, consistently. If you've got a headshot on the website, you need to be posting that on your social media. It needs to show up everywhere. It's the little touch points that build that trust.
And what about selfies? Are people turned off by selfies, or do they have to be pro?
Well, interestingly, on LinkedIn, selfies get, I think it's like 87% more engagement than any other type of post. And that is because people buy from people. People buy from people they like, that they trust, and they connect with. So it's really, really important that you do show up. And that's the same with video content. If it's you talking about your expertise, what you're good at, what you've offered clients, what transformations you've done for your clients, that is, again, just going to build so much trust and credibility for you. And that will be happening while you're asleep, because you post that content and people will see it, So yeah, it's really, really important. Right. Show up.
So thank you for that. And we have a question from Rachel. So do you want to ask your question, Rachel, in line with your business, so Jess can really hit the nail on the head for you?
I just want to understand more about animation. So we were good creating our brand, and we did go to a branding company, and we looked at colours, and we had a pre-employment screening, house background screening, safeguarding, that type of stuff. So We looked at safe colours, you know, giving trust, safe pair of hands, all of these perception things. So that was all cool. And then you split it then into, okay, that's the brand, and your branding is, what do your customers think? How do we make them feel? So we kind of okay with that. But I was interested in the animation stuff. And the other thing with branding is this thing about return on investment stuff as well. It's really hard to chuck money at something where you can't physically see that return on the investment. So sorry, that was a bit of a jumbled question. I'm interested in animation and how can you see a return on what you spend?
Absolutely. So yeah, there's probably two questions. What do you do, Rachel? Just so I can put it in that context, that might help.
What do you mean, what do I do?
What services do you offer? What's the business?
Oh, DBS checks, employment vetting, security clearance. You know, we do a lot with TV, you know, who are you employing, who are you working with, check their background.
Right. Okay, fantastic. So in terms of a service like that, you probably have a bank of frequently asked questions that you get asked. How does it work? How do you work? What's the process? I imagine. Would that be correct in assuming?
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm also assuming, big assumptions, that you've got those answers on your website somewhere.
Yeah.
That responds to those queries. So that's a normal practice for businesses to do. People can go on the search information and find it. And that is fantastic. But what's happened over the last 20 years, I think the stats recently, when I checked last, were attention spans have declined from 2.47 minutes to like 45 seconds. Our attention spans when we're reading online have just shrunk. And that is to do with, constant streams of content online, lots more competitors in the space. When we're searching for people to work with, or businesses or brands, we're time poor as a race. We're absolutely time poor. So video content has really taken a leap because of that reason. So a lot of businesses we're working with now are taking that long form content on the website that answer those customer queries and turning that into video content that answers those questions in a shorter, more engaging way. So whereas someone might go on a FAQ page and read all the answers, they're not doing that now because they just want their answer really quickly and they want to find it. And that will determine whether they look more into your brand, whether they want to work with you. So for instance, we're doing some really boring video content about shipping software for Amazon, and they had all this information on their website, but nobody was reading it because nobody has that time anymore. So we've taken what might take someone 5 minutes to read, we've chopped that down into 15-second clips of video that answer those queries, and they feed that across their social media. It also sits on their website. But what it acts as then is that extra breadcrumb touch point for people who are doing their research online, looking for video content, and then pushing them to their website to find out more. So really, animation is really useful for explaining really complicated or really boring things in a really simple and engaging way that people can digest quicker and get the answers they need quicker. So that's where animation comes in. And it's the other angle that we're finding a lot more now is because brands have a lot more competition in their spaces, their values and their origin stories are becoming more valuable. So if you have two businesses, they do exactly the same thing, they offer exactly the same thing, and one has a really captivating origin story about why they've started this business, that consumer is more likely to buy from them. Consumers are more likely to invest in brands that align with their own values. So communicating those whys behind why you've built your businesses is really fantastic. Social content, website content, and is another way to build trust and credibility. So video content is really taking a leap in that side. You've probably got an about page. Most brands have, and a lot of brands now are converting that into evergreen and repurposeful video content that they can post everywhere to build up that trust. So that's where that comes in valuable. In terms of ROI, I think it's really important to remember that branding is a long game. It's not an overnight, success, you're not going to be able to measure the ROI that you invest in brand, because it is about the long-term credibility, reputation, working with more customers, getting those testimonials and that feedback through and posting that. It's a very, very long game. And the biggest, the most successful brands, if you've noticed, have refreshed their brand, but they've never changed their branding. They all refresh it. The biggest brands, that it's the same brand that was there 20 years ago. They've just tweaked and evolved the evolution of their visuals over time. But it's a long game, and it's about the trust and credibility and showing up. And it's that consistency thing again. You have to be consistent, because it means you're reliable and trustworthy. So that's where that comes from. In terms of ROI on animation, it's a tough one, because again, it is a long game. You might have a video on your website that is showcasing your values and the why behind your brand. But unless you ask those customers why they bought from you, you'll never know whether that was converting content. So it's about having that regular. We do it quarterly. We have client interviews quarterly where we find out what they're thinking, why they bought from us, why they would buy from us again. And then we use that content in our marketing continuously. It's about being curious ultimately, and even the people that went elsewhere, ask them why you went with those people instead of us, and use that content and learn from it, and take it in. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it very much did. Yeah, because I'm working with Amy and Lisa now to start a new website, new platform, training, and we will be using video content and animation stuff, but I really don't know where to begin with this. So it would be good if we could have another conversation and explore what we need, or you might be able to help with.
Yeah, I can definitely throw some ideas at you where to start gathering, some nuggets of where you could start with the video content. But there are some really interesting statistics around videos on your before the fold of the website. So the first thing you see on the website under your header and your branding, if you have an explainer video there, your website is 87% more likely to convert a customer than if it was just an image or text. So it really is I think it's vital, digestible, engaging, easy to understand, and speaking directly to those people. So marketers or, small business owners, whoever is your target audience is, name them and speak directly at them. And don't worry about missing out on other demographics over here. Focus on who you want to work with, because people are also more likely to work with someone who specializes in their industry than they are with someone who's going to be more broad and work with anyone.
Yeah, thank you.
So on this theme of explainer videos then, Jess, I'm really interested to know can you give us a few examples of what an explainer video could look like, or an explainer piece or visual?
Yeah, this is where the question then always comes back to differentiating yourself from the competitors and being really, really clear on who you are. So a lot of brands we've worked with have said, our competitor over here has done this explainer video and we want one exactly the same because that works. That's the wrong direction. What you need to be doing is taking that client insights and taking, what those customers are frequently asking and turning that into a piece of content that answers their concerns or makes them feel safer purchasing from you and buying from you. And what it looks like should look nothing like anything that's gone before. So if you work with a content agency or an animation agency, they should be asking you how robust your brand guidelines are before they do any work. Because how well you've thought out your brand and how well you've thought out your brand guidelines will determine how much that piece of content will stand out from the competitors. So what you don't want is it to look like someone else's. It needs to be your brand. People need to look at a color and a font and go, I know what brand that belongs to. If you look at the Coca-Cola red before you even see the logo, you think of that brand, because it's that ingrained in you. And that's because of consistency. And that's where really robust brand guidelines are really undervalued and underused. And they need to be developed. Like you wouldn't build a house without, you know, architectural drawings, you know, so you can't build content for a brand without having those foundations in place, and your rule book, your playbook, essentially, for how your brand shows up everywhere.
Lovely. Great answers there. And we've got Mel who's asked a question. So I know Mel is in the process of starting up her organization. So over to you, Mel. Would you like to ask your question directly to Jess?
Yeah, thank you. I think I've just kind of answered my own question to a degree, because the first thing I need to decide is who my potential customers are. And that I find difficult in itself, because the people I work with are, you know, all come into the training room from another business. So another business gets the clients basically, and then they hire me to go in and deliver the training. So I think one of the things which isn't to do with branding really, I need to really work on, and I know Cheryl will be able to help me with this, is identifying who my clients are, because what I need to be doing is going directly to them rather than through the middleman. But I think I was just interested in what you were saying about, you know, you look at your competitors or your potential competitors and see what they're doing sort of branding wise, color wise, and you don't want to be the same as them. And I get that makes complete sense to me. So for me, I guess off the back of the question I've actually put in the chat is, I think I'm slightly confused between branding yourself a certain way for the purpose of your customers, because that was a really fascinating point. I don't know if anyone else thought the same, but when you said about colors, you know, I like this color, this is me, but it's not about us, it's about the customers. I've never ever thought of it quite in that way before, so thank you for that to start with.
Some people don't like that bit, but it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. That's really good. It does get you thinking slightly differently, doesn't it? So how do you find the balance then between not copying what your competitors are doing, and being completely yourself, which we've talked about before on I Am Woman as, you know, being really important. So how do we not be the same as them, but create the branding for them and not for us? Yeah. Does that make any sort of sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And it's a great question, because there does seem to be a disconnect there, right? Because you want to do what they're doing over here because it's working, but also you're a separate brand, you're trying to build something else. And I guess there's two ways I can answer that. Is always build your values and your culture. Think about that first as a project. So what are your values? And that might be, reliability, or whatever these values are that you want your business to embody. They're your values. So that's you bringing yourself into your brand in the way that you show up, and that will evolve into your messaging as well. So the most reliable, whatever it is, or the most trusted advisor for this, or whatever it might be. So build your values and who you want to be based on you. And that then fits into who you want to be working with. So I don't know about you, but I don't want to work with people that piss me off. I want to work with really great people who I enjoy working with, because I got into business to enjoy my work life and have that balance. So I don't want to work with, I was going to swear again, but you get my point. So my values are going to be very, very different to anyone else's values who are building a business in the same industry. I'm not interested in working with big brands just because they've got big budgets. I want to work with really nice people that I can help, and that I can build friendships with, and that I can see a long-term plan with. So those are my values. So yours might be different to that, and they will be different to your competitors. So start thinking about that first, and that will inform who you want to work with, and that will help you build that persona.
Okay.
So you can start, I want to work with, I don't know, so-and-so, 32, she really loves working with small business owners, because you can get that granular with it. So that's how you bring yourself into your brand, but still keeping, aiming at the people that you want to work with. And then you figure out who that person is, and then you build your branding around attracting that person. So who are they most likely to work with? What are their values over there? Or will they kind of align with mine because of this reason? So this is how I need to show up online to attract that type of customer. So this is a really difficult question to answer in terms of visuals, because when we do develop brands for clients, there is so much research that goes into this before we even develop any visuals at all. So I can't really answer that in that much depth, but if you start with your own values and then figure out who you want to attract, that's kind of the starting point for that. And then you can compare yourselves with, oh, well, our competitors over here, actually, I thought they were doing what we want to do, but they're attracting these types of people, which don't align with my values. So actually, my audience is over here. And those are the little nuanced bits of research that will help with the brand development and the messaging and then the visuals.
That's fantastic. I'm going to put Lorna in on the discussion now, because Lorna does a lot of really amazing photography, and so I'd be really interested to know how Lorna's photography impacts on this whole concept of branding. And what the connection is. Yeah. So
sorry, can I just add something to Mel's question as well, because you said something really interesting earlier about your work comes from associates and partners rather than directly from the clients. So I think a good starting point for you might be like, is that the way you want to work, or do you want to be working directly with clients? Because there's no right or wrong answer that way, but I think you probably need to decide if your audience is the associates and the partners that you want to get work through, or if your audience is directly those customers, because those will be very different directions to go in.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good point. Yeah.
So Lorna, can we bring you in on this discussion around, photography, especially, the high-end branding photography that you're able to offer clients, and how this actually works with almost like agencies like Jess is involved in. So over to you, Lorna.
Good morning. Well,
because you're all about creativity, aren't you? Because Jess hit upon, we've got to be clear about the kind of people we want to work with. And I know you're all about creativity. You want to work with people and not be almost like boxed in regarding creativity.
No, I mean, creative freedom is one of our core values in our mission statement. Lorraine and I, as you all know, we're artists first and foremost. And I think sometimes the challenge for us is that our client spectrum is wide. We shot last weekend, and the spectrum was from, a little boy age 5 looking, cute as a button, to a lady who came to celebrate her 60th birthday, who has overcome, a battle in life, and came to create a legacy portrait, really. And as you rightly say, Cheryl, and then we also can be combining that with branding or fashion photography. So it's yes, it's broad, and I think that is the challenge. Although everything boils down to our core is to create an amazing experience for our clients, no matter what. If they're 5-year-old Yestin with his fishing rod, or a model who's about to go down the runway. I mean, it's a challenge, isn't it, when you're working in such a broad arena.
So coming to you then, Jess, based on that, is this going back to branding is about how you make people feel?
That's how I feel. Sorry, that's how I feel, Jess, about my business. It's the experience. You know, what sets us apart as photographers is the way we make people feel and the experience of coming to us. And I know some of you ladies here have been brave enough to sit the other side of our lens. Thank you. But that's what's at the heart of every portrait Lorraine and I create, truly.
And that's brilliant, because that means that will be your core message. So it's not about we do fashion photography or we do you know, children's photography. You're saying that you're building an experience, a really great experience that they can treasure, that they can, you know, have in their memory forever. So that is your messaging. So that makes sense. And it's about how you leave people feeling.
I think so, because, you know, one of the things that resonates for us is that we help people show the world how they want to be seen.
Oh, I love that.
But also how they want to be remembered.
Lovely. Deep. Oh, I love that.
It is deep.
See the difference between saying we are a corporate photographer or we are a family photographer. The difference between the emotion you tie to what you said, what Lorna said, and what some brands will say on their website. So if you can imagine that header, you know, corporate photography for creative brands. So loads of people do that. Building a legacy, building an experience for people to be remembered how they want to be seen. Oh my God, all the feels. Do you know what I mean? That's the difference. And you can do that in the financial industry. You can do that in, you know, a law firm. We're working with a law firm now because they were like, I don't really understand how we can differentiate ourselves from another law firm, but they've got this thing about lawyers for life. So we built on that idea where they are your allies throughout life, through all these life experiences you have. And then that is an emotional connection to them, rather than just we're lawyers and we do this, this, and this. So again, it's about how you make them feel and how you can do something different than your competitors by leaving them with this transformational feeling, or this feeling of safety or trust, or whatever it might be. People are, you know, it's harder for people to part with their money these days, and they will do it if they feel they're in safe hands and they're going to get something worthwhile and feel safe and feel looked after. So we need to be using emotional language in our brand messaging to get that across. So yeah, it's a great example.
And I know in your marketing, Jess, because obviously I've had a look around all your website, it is about almost like creating inspiring stories as well. And do you think we get too hung up thinking we've got to describe everything we do to the last letter, as opposed to, you know, walking into this energy and creating a story?
People don't care how you do things. They don't care the ins and outs. They don't care, you know, how many degrees or how much, you know, detail oriented person you are. All they care about is how they're going to feel afterwards, what you're going to provide for them that's going to change their lives. So when we talk about brand storytelling, really what we want to be doing is ignoring the how and the what's and the how it works, and focus on the why. You know, why do you do what you do? Why do you love what you do? Communicate that, because people don't care, you know, how you know, your piece of software works or how your camera works. You know, they don't care how skilled you are with the camera. They care about how they're going to feel afterwards, or the experience they're going to have. So I think we do get hung up on detail rather than story, and I think that's where brands lose consumers more, when they want to give them every tiny little bit of information, but in reality we don't care.
That's absolutely fantastic. What we do at this stage now, Jess, we go around everyone for you to know the difference that you've made in their knowledge experience this morning. Yeah, so everyone's going to share with you what they've learned, and then we'd like you to think about how we can all contact you later and what's going on and how can we make a connection with you. So I'm going to come to you, Beth. So what have you learned from this morning session? You know, because there's been such a lot there. For me, it's been this last bit around the why, you know, how you make people feel afterwards. I think we forget that. we just get so consumed by customer journey or detail or facts. I really love this. How do you make people feel at the end of it? So that's my bit. Over to you then, Beth. What has been your light bulb this morning?
I think it's the consistency. I'm probably not consistent in the messaging I give out or the way I portray myself, and that's probably something I need to learn.
Consistency is definitely one of those things. And just to add to that as well, because I think people, especially small business owners, we worry about repeating ourselves too much and annoying people. But repetition builds memorability, builds credibility. So when you hone and you nail that brand message, repeat it everywhere consistently. If you post a video communicating that, don't assume that everybody in your network has seen it. They won't have. So repost it, put it out there, repeat and build that credibility. Don't be scared of just saying the same thing over and over again, because that's what brands do every single day. That's how they build their trust and grow. So yeah, we've got to get better at that, I think.
Fantastic, thank you. Over to you, Karen. What's been your light bulb this morning?
I think for me, it's the importance of video and keeping it to under 45 seconds, just from an attention point of view, and having that thing above the fold. Because I've just rewritten, with the help of ChatGPT, thank you very much, my FAQs, but they go on like a bloody essay. Whereas, as you say, if you can make it more succinct and put a video in there, it's more personal, it's more consistent, and it's me showing up rather than just blur. And I think the thing with ChatGPT is it's making everything vanilla, and we like vanilla, but also with a bit of chocolate, a bit of strawberry sauce on top of it, and all the other things that go with it. Yeah, it sprinkles.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And the thing is as well, if you can add some credibility to that with testimonials from your actual customers, and really specific ones, like what did you most value about working with me, or things like that, and use your customers' insights and testimonials and reviews. Use that as part of your content, because that only builds trust and credibility even more.
Fantastic. And Lynn, what have you got out of this session? So I can see some little video content pieces popping up on your website. So what are you going to be doing?
Yeah, I think so. And a lot of it is around consistency, but it really hit home when you talked about how people feel. I had clients last week, and when I went in, the poor lady, she was like a bag of nerves. I went in and she had a job to speak, bless her. Her husband did all the talking, and she would join in now and again, but I could see how nervous she was. But towards the end of our appointment, she was much more talkative, much more happy. And she said, "I'm so glad we chose you." She said, "You've been absolutely lovely." She said, "You've really put our minds at rest." And I'm thinking, I don't share any of that.
That's wonderful messaging. So maybe you can build messaging around, putting families at ease, or, making it a simpler experience, and it might be more enjoyable than you think, or something around, that experience you've just shared.
Thank you.
Yvonne, over to you. Your light bulb from this morning.
I think for me, it's the importance of those explainer videos, but also that not being afraid to repeat content. I think sometimes we put pressure on ourselves to always come up with something new and something different. But, I know people need to see something perhaps 5, 6, 7 times before they buy.
It used to be something like 6 touch points. Customers use 6 touch points to buy from you, and now it's like 12 to 18 touch points. So if you've got, I do it. I've got a bank of 7 TikTok videos that I just recycle. I repost, I pepper other things in every now and again, but I recycle and I repost because it's our brand messaging, and that's the bit that resonates. So. And don't put pressure on yourself to always have to come up with new ideas, because that's draining. And if you're running a business, who's got time for that? So build up that bank, deliver it really well, and just reuse it everywhere.
Lovely, thank you. Coming to you, Mel, what's your light bulb of learning?
Gosh, where do I start? I've made 3 pages of notes throughout this, talking about keeping things brief. They are all brief, they're just all interesting points. So yes, definitely the difference between brand and branding. I didn't know that before, so thank you, and that really makes a lot of sense. The same thing as some of the other ladies have mentioned as well. For me, also where you said about working on my values first and then using that to inform who my potential clients will be. That was really useful for me. Again, when I'm doing my leadership stuff, I bang on and on about, you could teach people every change model, performance management tool, whatever, but it's about how you relate to people and how you connect with them, how you make them feel. So for me, that's kind of like, right, you've got to now practice what you preach, because I tell other people that that's important, but I don't necessarily apply that to myself in my kind of branding, I suppose. So yeah, and probably loads more because I've just written loads. But yeah, that was amazing. Thank you. It's been brilliant.
I'm glad. And our website, Wonder Woman, Lisa, what have you learnt this morning? Because this is your bag, isn't it?
I think, like, branding isn't really what I do, because I do more websites, but obviously I refer to other people for the brand and stuff and that. But I think I can see that, like I said earlier, I don't think my brand message is strong and I'm not consistent. And I think I do need to be clearer who I work with and what I do. But then I can also see that my brand is quite strong because people work with me because of that, because of the experience of working with me, when you were saying earlier. And I know that obviously Lynn and Beth, I've known them a long time, so they've probably seen how it's evolved. But like, I've been to networking events and people are like, oh my God, you're a website Wonder Woman type thing. So something they must be working. So it's not all as bad as I think it is.
It's not, no, it's just, it's building on it, isn't it? And
Yeah.
if you've already built that reputation, make sure you're sharing your customers' reviews and share that and say, so-and-so said this about me.
Yeah, definitely.
You've got to get better at bragging about, what we're good at as well.
It might be worthwhile, Lisa, for you to go and meet Jess. And perhaps there's a collaboration.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Coming to you, Rachel. So your light bulb of learning from this morning.
Well, I'm quite pleased. I think we're better than what I thought I was at the beginning of the meeting. So thank you, Jess. There are lots of things that you said that we do, but there are lots of things you said that we don't do. So I'm not consistent, particularly when it comes to social media and posting and stuff like that. I just have a really short attention span with it. I just get so bored or annoyed, but I do it. I am aware that I need to be more consistent. And the other gap that's been identified is the animation and the video content, and it's something we've really got to do. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. And last but not least, Lorna, our amazing photographer. You like the photographers.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Jess, because, it's been nice to have an affirmation in my head then about some of the things that we're doing. But I found, like so many of you, this word video today has resonated because it's something that we are actively working on and developing our skill set. So from, portraiture to also include video. And I think this aspect of know, like, and trust comes in because we have clients sitting with us who say, oh, could you make some behind the scenes? Could you do some video as well? Because I'm having a great time. I'm relaxed. I trust you guys. You know my best side, Lorna. You're a real woman. And I think the bell that's ringing today here is that we're absolutely right to be on that path and develop it further to sit alongside our portraiture, but then also do this for ourselves as well, because we are terrible at hiding behind the lenses. So
I think that would be great for you. Behind the scenes, this is, you know, a real example of what our experience looks like, and then
Yes.
tap on that review and that video testimonial at the end of that person that you've spent that day with. I think that would be golden content for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as I say, it's something we're aware of and something we are developing. The thing is with us, it's got to be right. We're terrible perfectionists.
Well, see, perfection gets in the way of progress. I
It
think
does. It does.
we all do that. We get hung up on being perfect, and that
Yes.
stunts progress. It's better to make some imperfect steps than none at all. So I wouldn't worry on about perfection. It's easier said than done, I know, but just do it. Just make the little steps forward, because everything you do for the first time, like we all know, is going to be rubbish.
Yes.
The only way we can improve on it is to keep doing it. So yeah, try not to get hung up on the perfectionism.
I agree. I think sometimes, you know, being your authentic self. I mean, people, as you say, people buy people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And again, Lorna, there could be an opportunity as well for you to collaborate with Jess, because Lorna's, you know, her company has won the Style and Fashion Photographer of the Year awards and all that kind of stuff. So there could be collaboration opportunities for you to embrace animation, and Jess to have a look at, you know, your style of photography. So it's been absolutely amazing.
Thank you. Yes.
You've brought almost like gold dust to all of our businesses, and really sort of shaking us up to almost start get real and get on there and get out there again. So thank you so much, Jess. Can't thank you enough. So could we give Jess a round of applause, please? Thank you, Jess. You've been amazing. And can you tell us how people make contact with you and the kind of things you're interested in working on?
Yeah, I am everywhere online. So you wouldn't if you type in, well, I'm Jess Morgan on LinkedIn. Probably easy to find there. Jess the Tiny Wizard on Instagram, TikTok. If you want to email me, I'm happy to answer any questions or jump on another call one-to-one. My email is jessica@tinywizardstudio.com. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. But on the LinkedIn note as well, I just want to add one final tip, if I can. Sorry if we're going over. I think a lot of business owners, especially small business owners, are not really understanding the value of showing up on LinkedIn as much as they should. And it's very interesting, the opportunities that come from it if you are consistently showing up there. So I would definitely recommend getting on there. And on a sidebar to that as well, how people are presenting themselves on social media. Remember, we talked about earlier, nobody cares about the how and the what. So if your email signature has got all your degrees after it, for instance, or whatever it might be, nobody cares. Lead with who your customer is. Put them as the hero. So we help so-and-so do this by doing this, rather than it being about you. So I would definitely recommend playing with your, you know, your taglines, your email signatures, your LinkedIn bios and things like that. Because if people are searching for you, they want to know how you can help them before they need to know about your qualifications or anything like that. So just a sidebar there. But I'm everywhere online, so stalk me.
So you prompted one last question now about this LinkedIn thing, because a lot of people are saying, do people buy off LinkedIn, and how is it different to Facebook? So how are people buying Facebook versus LinkedIn, and how prominent do you think LinkedIn is?
LinkedIn is probably the most powerful platform I use, and most of my business comes from LinkedIn. And again, it's a long game because it's about showing up and having those conversations. But people are more engaged with businesses on LinkedIn than they are on other platforms. So you might get followers on Instagram who are interested in your message and your story. But in terms of the services you're offering, LinkedIn is definitely the place to be. And don't get hung up on metrics or impressions or likes. One of my videos that I posted on LinkedIn once around brand storytelling had like 4 likes, like nothing, but I had 3 massive clients come from that post, because the people who are buying have little time, so they don't very often engage. So the people that most engage with your posts on LinkedIn are probably not going to be your customers, but the people that are watching, that don't have time to leave the likes and comments, you're in their mind when they need your services. So yeah, don't underestimate the value of LinkedIn. I definitely recommend being there.
Last question. And how often do you post then on LinkedIn in order to create this brand consistency? Is it once a day? Is it 3 times a day? What does that look like in your world?
Bare minimum once a day, but I know lots of business owners who 3 times a week, and they get what they need from it. I post once a day because it's kind of my diary outlet as well. So I do a lot of personal content on LinkedIn as well as the brand storytelling. So it's kind of when something pops into my head, but I also use it as a reactionary thing. So if I know that I've got a customer who's looking for what I want and I'm connected with them on LinkedIn and they've asked me a question or they've come to me with an obstacle about why they might buy from us, I answer that question on LinkedIn for all to see. And it's about being reactionary with the questions you're getting and posting those answers back out to your network. So I'm really active on it, but I'm lucky I've got a team behind me doing all the hard work. So I've got the time to be, present on social media, but that is where a lot of our business comes from. So I'm pretty active.
Well, thank you, Jess, and thank you for answering all these questions that we've run over. So I'm sure we're going to see you again in Iron Woman, creating amazing work with some of our members, and might even see you at a live event. So thank you, Jess, and thank you everyone for showing up this morning, and look forward to seeing you same time, same place next Monday for our Iron Woman Hour. So see you then. Have a great week, everyone, and thank
Lovely
you.
to meet everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Jess. Bye.